What's up YouTube, Justin Fuller here, and today I'm outside of a 2022 Honda Insight EX. So if you're in the market to buy a hybrid and you're looking in the mid-20 range, not a bad option. 55 in the city and 49 on the highway might be worth taking a look at. So let's check out how this car stacks up against the competition out there in the market. All right, guys, so we should probably talk about what's underneath the hood of this Insight, right? So let me pull you on in and we'll go over it together. So you are looking at a 1.5 liter engine, right? So 4-cylinder, it is putting out 151 horsepower out to your wheels. So it's running through a CVT transmission and then out to the car, right? So this, to give you an idea, a Civic, if you're looking at their 2-liter engine, puts out about 158 horsepower. The turbo engine puts out about 180. So has some similarities, not quite the horsepower, but getting close, right? So in here, you can see that this is packed pretty tightly. Over here, I've got my fuse box. As I wrap around, of course, I have my engine, checking oil, OW20 in case you were concerned about what it uses, accessing some of my fluids, right? All are gonna be available right here. So not a ton of room in here when it comes to that. So just be aware that you are stacking up things pretty tightly underneath the hood. All right, guys, so you may be asking yourself, what kind of gas mileage is this car gonna give me? So it gets 55 in the city and 49 on the highway. So combined, you're looking at approximately 52 miles per gallon. So it's fantastic as a commuter car, and being a hybrid, that is exactly what it is, right? But I want you to understand and be able to compare not only its horsepower, but also its miles per gallon to other vehicles out there in the market. So the first thing I'm gonna throw up on the screen up here is gonna be a horsepower comparison, so that you can see kind of, hey, what does this stack up against, and what kind of horsepower comparison am I really looking at? A 0 to 60 time on this car is approximately right under 8 seconds. So just to give you an idea as far as taking off the line, you should be able to get out there, move around, get up on the highway, get to those speeds that you're used to. Now, as far as miles per gallon, I'm gonna throw a comparison up on the screen of that as well, so that you can really understand, how does this car stack up against the competition out there, right? What is the miles per gallon looking like if I'm looking at some of the competitors that live in this kind of this niche area, right? So take a look at that, and then we'll head on around the car. All right, guys, so here in a second, we're gonna do a walk around on this car, but before we do that, I just wanna go over a couple things. So at 26,620, this is the EX. I want you to have an understanding for, hey, if I wanna leave the EX and jump up to that Touring and spend that extra, I think roughly 4K, what extras am I gonna get? So you can really understand if this is the trim level for you. So I wanna take a second and throw up, of course, what that amount is that's gonna cost you extra, and then what additional features are you gonna get if you decide that the EX isn't the model for you, but you wanna jump up to that next model up, the Touring model. So after you've taken a look at that, we'll head on around the car and talk about some different features. Starting you off at the front of this vehicle, I wanna point out that you do have LED daytime running lights and LED headlights. You will notice that you do not have a fog light on this car. You're probably gonna need to climb trim levels. Now, as we come across here, I will point out that you do have the nice chrome grille, and then I've got the nice finishes with the black coming across the top. This car does have Honda sensing, so down here you'll notice that there is a radar right there, and then coming up top there's a camera where you can see that trapezoid cut out right over there. Now, if you're not familiar with Honda sensing, what that is a suite of different safety features. Now, the first being collision mitigation braking, meaning really fancy is that it can detect cars with the radar in front, and if it bounces off and it's looking like you're rearing them first, it'll alert you to hit the brakes, and if you don't, it'll apply the brakes for you. So that's collision mitigation braking. Now, you also have road departure mitigations, meaning if I'm gonna drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert and shake the wheel to be, hey, wake up, pay attention. Now, working kind of in that same area, you have lane keep assist. Now, what this does is this uses that camera up here to detect the lines out on the road in front of you. So as it does, once you've armed it, it'll keep you centered in the lane. So if you drift to the left or right, it'll actually move the wheel to keep you centered in that lane. Now, moving one past that, this car does have blind spot monitoring. So as I wrap around to the mirrors first, I'll point out that they are breakaway mirrors, just so you know. They're electric, and then I have the blind spot monitoring system right here, where it'll light up if there's a car in my blind spot. If I start to get over, it'll actually give me an audible alert. Now, starting with wheels and working around the car, you do have a 16-inch alloy painted wheel right here. As you come up, I did point out you do have the breakaway mirrors. This car does have smart key entry, meaning if I have the key in my pocket, I can stick my hand in, it'll unlock, and I can touch the 3 ridges on the top to lock the doors versus unlock, right? So easy enough to understand. Now, as we wrap around the back, I will point it out that the car has been tinted. This has been done here at this dealership, so it normally would not come with this. Looking up across the top, you do have the shark fin. So that's going to be as far as your related to your radio. This is going to be as far as picking up signal, right? Now, as we move around the back of the car, you've got nice big brake lights. Of course, it's badged hybrid. All Hondas do. Badged Insight. And then you've got your backup camera and your emblem right here. Now, let's pop on with the trunk and talk about your cargo space. All right, guys, so here we are at the back of this vehicle. Now, when it comes to hybrids, a lot of times what you run into is the IMA battery in the back kind of takes up some space. So I want to pull you in and talk about that. So if you're looking back here, it's actually a normal sized trunk. This is about 15.1 cubic feet. To give you an idea, if you were looking at a Honda Civic, you'd be looking at actually 14.8, so it'd be a little bit less. Now, as we come in here, I will point out that this is, of course, my carpeted floor mats that comes standard with the car. Now, when I hop underneath, this is going to be one of the few things that I do not care for. You're not going to find a spare tire in this vehicle. They run with the inflator, and then they like basically fix a flat, right? So not a huge fan of that. I would love to see an actual spare live in the car, but my understanding is they pull it out as far as weight restrictions, right? Now, as far as throwing down the back seat, you absolutely can do it. You can pull a tab here, pull a tab here, and then you can actually flip them down. So you do have a 60-40 split. Let's see if I can throw these down so that you can get into that trunk space and use it. So this is actually an adequate using space as far as you don't have a battery that typically would stick up and block a lot of that space. So if you need to run something through, you absolutely can. All right, guys, so before we leave the back end of this car, one, I wanted to prove that you can fit quite a bit in it. I'm actually laying through the trunk right now, right? Didn't have to do it, but I did it. For you. Anyways, I want to do a comparison as far as cargo space goes, or I should say trunk space really in this vehicle. So I want to throw that up on the screen so that you can really understand how does this car stack up against some of those other cars out there in the market that it would normally compete with. So take a fresh look at that, and then we will head into the second row and talk about the spacing, the materials, and what I think. All right, guys, so here we are in the second row of this Honda Insight. So as a 6-footer, I want to show you what it looks like to sit behind one because I was the one driving this, right? So as I flip around and show you down here, I've still got actually some space to work with here. So to give you an idea, this car has 37.4 inches of legroom space. Now, if I was comparing this to something, let's say like the Civic, thinking, hey, if I go non-hybrid, save a couple bucks on the purchase of the car, will I get some additional space or anything like that? It's actually the exact same. 37.4 inches is their second row legroom as well. So just something good to know. Now, what's really important though is we should talk about how does this compare to what else is out there on the market. So I want to throw that comparison up on the screen so you can really see and understand, hey, how does it stack up? Now, after you've taken a look at that, let's talk about the material. So this comes with a cloth interior. This one has a black interior, and I want to show you what that looks like. So it's kind of two-toned here in the sense that you've got a pattern finish going right here, and then just a standard black right here. And of course, it does have to flip down, you know, with the cup holders and all that. Now, as you come across, they do put black where your elbows go. So I love that they do that. That way you don't get anything dirty. And then you got some additional storage down here. Now, they are shorting you on the pockets right here. It's a 2022, guys. This is a $26,000 car. I think we can go ahead and give us the pockets, right? I think we can just add pockets to every car now. Let's go ahead and do it, right? Now, with all of that said, this is a cloth interior. If you're looking for something like leather, you could have it added to this vehicle from like an aftermarket kind of situation, something like cat skins, or you could jump up to that touring model. While I'm mentioning that touring, I do want to jump back into that and just remind you to say, hey, here's those list of items. So I'm going to throw up on the screen so you see, hey, here's the list of items that I'll get if I jump up to the touring, including that leather interior, and this is how much extra it's going to cost me. So I'm going to say it's roughly about 4 Gs, and I want to say you're going to get leather, you're going to get navigation, I think a moonroof, and some additional features that I might just be missing at the current moment. So hopefully those are on the screen for me. All right, guys, so here we are in the front row of this vehicle, and once again, I got plenty of space. So as a 6-footer, I've got inches. So if you're in that 6'2", 6'3" range, you'd be good to go as far as using this as a commuter car. Now, this car has 42.3 inches of legroom space in the front. Now, as a comparison again to the Civic, exact same amount, right? So when you're really thinking about this car as far as shaping, size, things like that, if you've ever seen a new Honda Civic in the last couple years, very similar to that, right? You might not have seen one of these, or you saw it and you thought it was a Civic, right? Now, that's important to know as far as leg space comparison from a hybrid to non-hybrid situation if you're shopping in the Honda family. But let's say you're shopping outside of the Honda family, you really need to get a good comparison of legroom space out there as far as what's in the market. So I'm gonna throw that up on the screen so you can understand how does the front row leg space comparison work in this car compared to others out there in the market. So as I mentioned before, this is a cloth interior. If you want to jump up, you'd be looking at that touring model, so just something to keep in mind. After this, we are going to jump over and show you what's all the dash layout and walk you through some buttons and knobs. All right, guys, so let's work our way across this dash and talk about a lot of these buttons, features, and knobs and what you're seeing here. So over at the left, I'll just quickly touch on this and say you've got auto up-down windows, your windows lock, door locks, and then your window controls there are powered mirrors. And then down below, your trunk release, and then your hood release is right down low. Now, as far as accessing your gas, you can get to it right here. Now, this button right here is going to be vehicle stability assist. This works with your traction control, so in the event that you go into a skid, it'll transfer power to whichever wheel is getting better traction. Now, this next button, if I press that, it's going to pull up all of the menus for my Honda sensing features. So I know we touched on these earlier, but I want to remind you of what those are. Road departure mitigation. If it's looking like I'm going to drive off the shoulder of the road, it'll give me an audible alert and shake the wheel. The next one down is going to be my blind spot information system. So I do have the blind spot information system. Let me roll my window down here and point it out. Little logos right here that'll light up in orange. And if I start to get over and there is somebody there, it'll give me an audible alert. And then moving one down from that, I've got my collision mitigation braking, meaning that if it's looking like I'm gonna, rear in another car, first it'll give me an audible alert, then it'll actually start to apply the brakes to help prevent that accident from happening. Now, so that's gonna be some of your Honda sensing features here, and then I can jump out of that, right? Now coming across the top, you do have your trip computer, and then if you wanna dim what's going on in here, you absolutely can. Now, as far as this steering wheel, let's talk about all your controls here. So not a ton going on here. You don't got stuff behind and up and over and all that, but there is quite a bit on the steering wheel. I like a simplistic look if I can get it, right? But to answer kind of questions on here, you've got your Bluetooth control. So to answer a call, hang up, and use voice command. This will also work with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I can press and hold until I hear the beep for Siri or Google, and use that to ask them to do things like, navigate me to this, send a text to this person, call this person, that sort of thing. And I can also use this from the general standpoint of, placing phone calls via Bluetooth. However, I like to use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto more because I feel like the voice recognition works better and you just have more accessibility to different things you can do. Now, above that, this menu button right here, you're gonna see this home button. If I hit that, I can toggle through all these different menus right here. So gauges only, eco drive, as far as the way you're driving, it'll let you know, as far as managing that, your power flow. This is just kind of cool because it shows you if you're driving in a hybrid version, if you flipped over to strictly gas. So it'll let you know kind of what the drivetrain is currently working through. Range, fuel consumption, fuel economy, speed and time. These are all gonna be related to like if you're, if you're gonna be driving long distances. Audio, it'll jump over to anything option wise. So if I have this turned on, which now I do, I believe, it'll give me whatever option I have going. So I have Bluetooth pulled up right now, but if I had, let's say, FM pulled up, it'll show me whatever option I have going. So easy enough to understand how that works. Now, as far as we continue through here, accessing my phone, easy enough. One of the best parts about this, I love the traffic sign recognition system. So it's using that same camera up here that it uses for that lane keep assist to detect the lines on the road. And it'll actually pick up those traffic signs as you pass them. So if you find yourself in a school zone, if you find yourself in a trafficked area, or maybe a construction zone where you might not normally know with GPS what the speed limit is, this is gonna pick it up and tell you. So cool feature that it has. Now moving down, driver support, obviously related to the Honda sensing stuff that we talked about earlier. Driver attention monitor. So what this is that if I'm not really touching the steering wheel a whole lot, or the gas or the brakes, depending on all the features that I'm using, at a point it's gonna start to alert me just to make sure that I'm alert and paying attention. So that's what this is. Now maintenance wise, if you just wanna get your oil life, right, it's gonna pull it up and show you here, right? Safety support, this jumps back over and shows me that I have those Honda sensing features on. So, the collision mitigation braking, the road departure mitigation, and my blind spot monitoring system, as you can see right there. Now, warnings, this would be like if I left the trunk open, the gas door open, something like that, a car door is still open, easy enough to understand. So that's what's all in these menus. You can go through here and play with these and look through them if you want, right? So now moving down from that, if I am listening to audio, I'll be able to jump between tracks right here. So you can see that I'm seeking right now via the radio station, and then my volume controls are gonna be right here. So that's the left side. Now, when you jump over to the right side, you're gonna have some of those additional Honda sensing features. Now, lane keep assist is that first one. So if I'm pressing this button right here, I'm gonna need to have the main button first on. And when you press this main button, you're gonna see ACC and LKAS. That stands for adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist. So let's talk about lane keep assist. Lane keep assist is this button right here. When I engage this, you're gonna see some dotted lines appear up here. What it's doing is using that camera to detect those lines on the road, so that if I drift to the left or the right, it'll keep me centered so that I don't accidentally drift into another car, because maybe I was distracted in my car. My kid was screaming, my dog jumped on me, my coffee spilled. I answered a text, right? All those things that no one's doing because everyone's paying attention to the road. Now, the second one is gonna be your adaptive cruise control. So adaptive cruise control, imagine classic cruise control, but I'm using that radar to detect the cars in front of me. So if it bounces it off that car and sees that, hey, I'm approaching this car and we're getting close, it can slow my car down until I get around them, get over, and take me back up to speed. So in doing so, I would set the distance using this button right here. So as I press it, the more boxes you see, the more space it's gonna keep between me and the car in front of me, right? So easy enough to understand. Now, if you just wanna use classic cruise control, no big deal. You can do that, press and hold this button, and it'll flip over and say cruise mode. And now you're just using classic cruise, and then press and hold again, and you're back to ACC mode, so easy enough. Now, above here, or behind the steering wheel, I should say, you're gonna see a plus and a minus. So this is gonna allow you to upshift and downshift the car. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can downshift and use regenerative braking to help build charge back up over here, so that you can use that as you're driving down the road to help improve that gas mileage. So something to be aware of it when I'm coming up to a brake, instead of just braking the car, maybe I wanna continue to downshift if I'm moving at a high speed, so that I can help build up that charge again. So just a different way that you can kind of work the system to help improve that gas mileage beyond the 55 in the city and the 49 on the highway. Now, over here, I've got access to my lights, and then my windshield wiper controls are right here. Now, let's talk about the touchscreen. All right, guys, so here we are on the touchscreen. So let's walk you through some different features so you can really understand how this thing works here, right? So I'm just gonna kind of first show you that if you wanna move any of these buttons around, you absolutely can. You can press and hold. The minute you do that, it's gonna allow you to start moving stuff. So if you wanna customize this, very easy to do. Once you're done, right there, right? So you know that you can remove and add buttons depending on what you want to do. So let's start off and kind of talk about a couple things. First being the phone. I've connected up my phone so I'd be able to access my contacts, you know, recent calls, that sort of thing there. So easy enough to understand. Now, as far as Android Auto, you do have to plug your phone into this one. So I wish that the 2022 would have went wireless. Let's just move into the wireless and accept it, right? So I don't have to plug my phone into USB. But nonetheless, I have plugged my phone in and connected it up. So from here, if you're not familiar with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, it's going to give you access to a lot of different things. Things like being able to access, let's say, my navigation system. So if I want to use Google Maps, if I want to use Waze, whatever it may be that I want to use, this is going to give me the ability to do that, right? Now, additionally, it's going to give me a lot of other features too. So there are several apps that you're going to have available to you. So for music, I use Spotify, I use YouTube Music, I could access Pandora, a lot of different options here. So this is gonna be related to connecting up with your phone and not having to touch the phone, just to leave it here and access all these things. So I can also use all my voice commands, as I mentioned earlier, whether I wanna touch the steering wheel, or you can see I have the button right here that I could press and then ask Google to do something for me. So, navigate me to this place, right? Send a text to this person, call that person. So a lot of different options that you have available to you here. Waze, if you prefer Waze over Google Maps or Apple Maps. So know that you have several options here, right? So I just wanted you to see this and really understand how this works. Now, moving away from that, your power flow. So we looked at it earlier, but this will just show me when I'm driving, you're gonna see it connect up and show me whether it's driving in a hybrid mode, purely gasoline, or purely electric. So it's kind of cool that it can do that and show me how it's gonna be driving. So it's just something cool that you can really start to understand, how does my vehicle work? Now, as we move away from that, let's talk about this. FM, pretty simple to understand, so I'm just gonna briefly touch on the FM and AM, right? I can obviously access, go search around, seek. When I find a station I want, press and hold, set it as one of my favorites, right? So classic, pretty easy to understand as far as all of that goes. Now, trip computer, I can access, of course, that here and in the dash. So certain my trip A, sure my trip B, right? And then my current drive, right? So how many miles I'm on this tank of gas, right there. So jumping back out of that, SMS text function. So if you have your car connected up via Bluetooth, it can read your text aloud to you. So just know that that's something you take advantage of, or you could use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto to do the exact same feature. Bluetooth audio. So if I have music that I want to listen to off of that, I absolutely could. Right now it's blocking me because I am using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So remember that you're gonna have to leave one to get to the other. Now, moving over to the secondary screen, this car does come with 90 days of Sirius XM satellite radio. So I would be able to take advantage of that. And then afterwards, I could continue that if I would like to pay for it. So know that you have that available to you in the EX model. Now, as we continue across USB, you can see that I have my Pixel plugged into the first one. I do have a secondary one. What's cool about that is if I had a thumb drive with music on it, I could plug it in, leave it in there, and be able to listen to that music off of that thumb drive. Now, it's my understanding that in the past couple of years, they've changed things around to where now you can actually put subfolders in there with your music on it, so you can do a little bit of searching through those folders. So kind of nice to know. Glad to hear that. AM, we just talked about. FM, I think it's easily to understand both. System updates, exactly what you would think it is. Connecting up to Wi-Fi, it allows the car to systematically update the vehicle as far as the software goes. Now, as far as the clock, you do have a clock here that you can set up and you can customize. You can come in here and start playing with different things. So you just jump into the settings and you could change, the clock face, whether it's digital or analog and so forth and so on. Now, your compass, this car one, it has a compass. How nice is that? Not every Honda does. I don't know why. You might as well just add it in here as an extra. Doesn't really cost anything, but know that your car has a compass. So you have it if you need it. Now, Honda Link. Honda Link is going to do a couple things. The first being that when you connect up a phone via Bluetooth, it's going to prompt you and say, hey, would you like to connect up Honda Link? In the event that you get in a car wreck and the airbags deploy, we can call 911 for you. So what they'll do is they'll first call down to the car. If you don't answer, they will call EMS and say, hey, this car was last seen, at this GPS location. Here's a year, make, model, color, and VIN. Right? So they're going to help protect you. 100% free. Take advantage of it. Now, additionally, Honda Link is going to provide some other features depending on the trim level vehicle and the type of vehicle you're in. Things like being able to control the door locks from your phone and be able to start the car from your phone. They are subscription-based services, but if you want to check it out, go to HondaLink.com and see what you think. Right? So that is going to be a quick rundown of what you see on the touchscreen. All right, guys, so let's talk about where you're going to put your crap when you're in the car. The center stack, right? So I'm gonna flip you around here and kind of show you. So the first thing I'll point out is it doesn't have a classic shifter. It's got buttons here that light up in LEDs, so that you'll know whenever you're throwing it into one, what it's in. While we're here though, I do wanna talk about the backup camera. So let's flip on up to that screen again and just talk about it for a second. You got 3 different views on this backup camera. So a wide angle backup camera, 170 degrees of kind of view, classic backup camera right here, and then one aimed straight down. So if I'm backing up to a garage, a pillar, whatever it may be, I can keep an idea for my spacing, or I'm just parallel parking, right? I think people still do that. Now on here, I will point out that you have cross-check and monitoring, which you'll see right here, which is on right now, lit up blue. And that means if there's a car coming from my left or right, it'll give me an audible alert and show me arrows on the screen. So that way, if I'm in between 2 cars and I'm backing out at the grocery store, I and I can't see that well, at least this will give me an alert and let me know, hey, someone's coming, because there is sensors off the back of the car to help you out. So that is your backup camera. Now flipping down, of course, I can go into drive, and then below that is gonna be my parking brake. Pull up to set it with my foot on the brake, press down, and then brake hold. Brake hold, just to touch on it quickly. If I have my seatbelt on, what brake hold does is it will hold the brake while the car's in drive. Now, this is really a convenience feature so that, let's say I come up to a stoplight, I can release my foot off of the brake pedal and just let it relax, and then hit the gas, it'll unlock the brake, right? So that's what this feature is, just kind of convenience. Most people aren't gonna use it a ton, but know that it's there to take advantage of. Now, something I will show you here. The first thing being is that, yes, you can put your phone here and it's big enough, but with the wire, it kind of makes things a little bit wonky. If you want it to lay flat, that might matter to you, or if you want to lay it on top of the wire, you absolutely can, but then you're gonna get that kind of, whatever you want to call that is, that kind of tilty thing going here. So, and if you do that, chances are it might disconnect from Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. So there you go. Not a huge fan of what's going on here. I wish they had put this a little bit further back, but nonetheless, you got a power outlet right here, and then you have three different modes here. Okay, so Econ is gonna improve gas mileage. So when this is on, you're gonna see a green leaf appear right here, and that means it's gonna affect the gas mileage in a positive manner. But in doing so, it's gonna shut down some electrical systems affecting things like the AC unit, so the fan's not gonna blow quite as hard, and your accelerator, you're not gonna take off and go quite as fast. So this is gonna be for improved gas mileage beyond that 55 in the city and that 49 on the highway. Now, Sport is the complete opposite of that. When I engage this, you're gonna see this light up red in here. You're gonna immediately hear it rev at a higher RPM. It's gonna give you a little bit more get up and go, but you're gonna give up some of that gas mileage, right? So kind of that opposite. If I wanna get in a little bit sportier mode, I want a little bit more get up and go, this might be the way I wanna go. Now, the lastly is your EV mode. So this is gonna be using that electric charge. So you have to build up that charge. So as you can see, when I press it right now, I don't have enough charge to use. But in doing so, when I do build up that charge after driving around and using that regenerative braking and everything, it's gonna allow me to flip over to purely electric and drive the car to where it's not costing me any gas. Now, if you're on the highway trying to use this, it's not gonna work. It's gonna flip back over to that gasoline. This is really for that stop and go traffic. When you're in that rush hour situation and it's, you know, every 30 feet you're coming to a stoplight, that's where you really wanna take advantage of this. So just something to be aware of. All right, guys, so we did it. We made it all the way through the car here. So the first thing I want to do is take you back and remind you about all those different comparisons we did. So I'm gonna start you at the front of the car and talk to you about horsepower. So this car gets 151 horsepower. So I'm gonna throw the comparison up so you can see how it stacks against those other cars in the market. Now, while I'm doing that, I want to talk to you about other Hondas. So if you're looking at like a Honda Civic, anywhere between 158 and 180 horsepower, depending on if you pick that 2-liter engine or you go up to that 1.5-liter turbo. So just so you can understand how these cars stack up together. Now, as we move over to miles per gallon, this car gets 55 in the city and 49 on the highway. So fantastic gas mileage. I'm not even gonna mention the Civic because it's not even in the ballpark when it comes to that, but I do want to throw a comparison up so you can see how this car stacks up to other vehicles out there in the market. So take a look at that. Now, as we move that, I will move into the front row, since we're moving the engine for the front, and talked about leg space comparisons, right? So I wanted you to see that leg space comparison. I want to say this one got, I think it was 42.3 inches in the front of this vehicle as far as a leg space. So check out how it stacks up to those other vehicles out there in the market. And then let's talk about that second row. In the second row, I believe you were getting 37.4 inches of leg space, which I knew is identical to the Civic, along with the front row as well, right? As far as leg space, so just so you know. But I want you to see what it stacks up to out there in the market so you can understand, hey, if I'm looking at other vehicles and it's gonna be a commuter car, or we're gonna take it on a lot of road trips, are my friends and family gonna fit in the car, right? It's important to know. Now, after we've done that, we're gonna move to the very back of this car and talk about the cargo space. So you have 15.1 inches of trunk space in this vehicle, which is actually a little bit more than a Honda Civic, surprisingly. Now, as far as what it competes out there in the market, I wanna throw that up on the screen so you can really understand, hey, if I am using this as a commuter, if I am gonna take a long road trip and I do need to load up luggage and some of my belongings, are they gonna fit? So take a look at that and kind of get your comparison. Now, after you've looked at all those comparisons, I want to remind you that this is probably one of those cars that is sneaking under the radar. It tends to win a lot of awards, but I don't hear many people talking about it. This car's fantastic. It looks and feels a lot like a Civic. I've owned one, so I am a little bit biased, but it gets great gas mileage, right? It's got the tech in the vehicle. A couple ergonomic things I'd like to see, like a little bit more space for my phone, and can we put some pockets on the back of this seat so I can store my crap? Let's be honest, guys. Give me two pockets, right? But outside of that, I've got the trunk space. I've got the Honda sensing features. If I wanted to hand this car down eventually to a younger person, I know that they would be safe in it. I know that they would have the tech they need to make sure that they're driving in a responsible way, right? You know, they've got all these different things working for them, and it gets great gas mileage. So if they don't got much money and they're heading off to college, they might need that extra gas mileage, right? So overall, I would say this is a fantastic car. If you're looking at it, I would strongly consider this. And I might even look at it over the Civic, right? If I can afford to spend those extra couple bucks,
which actually I'm gonna do that. If you're looking at a Civic EX compared to a Honda Insight EX, I'm gonna throw both those MSRPs up on the screen so you can understand, hey, what's the pricing difference between those two if I wanna stay in the Honda family, right? If you wanna look at Accord, I think it's gonna jump much higher, but hey, I'll throw that up on the screen too so you can see an Accord EX, you can see a Honda Civic EX, and then the Insight EX, which we're sitting in, which I wanna say is 26, I think 620, right? So with all of that said, I wanna ask you for a couple of favors. One, hit the like button. It makes me feel good inside, and there's just a sense of accomplishment. So press that button for me. Smash it if you like, for all the other YouTubers that say that, right? Secondarily, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. If there's something you feel like I missed or you wish I would touch on, please do mention it. Or if you just don't like the way I'm doing something, I can accept the criticism. I might not like it, but I'll take it. And then third, I hope that you'll share the video. If you got some friends in a forum, or you got somebody who's out there shopping in the market, I hope that you'll share this video with them. I gotta say, I try to keep the energy up. I understand that we've all watched a video where it takes 17 minutes to explain something that should have probably taken 2 minutes, and I don't want to be that guy, hence the fast talking. And lastly, I don't know that I got a lastly. Just like it, share it, comment, and later, guys!